Welcome to Screw the Commute, the entrepreneurial podcast dedicated to getting you out of the car and into the money with your host, lifelong entrepreneur and multimillionaire, Tom Antion.
Hey everybody, it's Tom here with episode 192 of Screw the Commute podcast. We're here with Shane Willis, and this guy's going to tell you how to make big comebacks when life knocks you down. So stay tuned for that. I'll introduce him to you in a moment. Hope you didn't miss episode 191. We got intimate with intimacy expert Alana Pratt. And don't get too excited. It wasn't an explicit episode, but she's expert in helping people come back from extreme losses and heartbreak. So make sure you check that out. Now, make sure you get our podcast app. It's in the App Store. It'll allow you to do all kinds of cool stuff with taking us on the road with your cell phone and tablets. So you can also go to screwthecommute.com/app, and we have complete instructions on how to download and use it. Now, as a thank you for listening, make sure you grab a copy of our ebook, How to Automate Your Business. And just one of the tips in this ebook has saved me over 7.5 million keystrokes and allowed me to handle up to 150,000 subscribers and 40,000 customers without pulling my hair out. So we sell this ebook for $27, but it's yours free as my thanks for listening. And while you're on the download page, we have another special white paper with some information that people are charging $4,000, $5,000, and $6,000 for. But I'm giving it to you for free. I'll surprise you with that. But you can grab all that at screwthecommute.com/automate free. Screwthecommute.com/automate free. Our sponsor is the Internet Marketing Training Center of Virginia. It's a distance learning school which teaches legitimate techniques to make a great living, either working for someone else, starting your own online business, or both. Now, we just got approved by the Department of Defense for a military spouse program, and we give big scholarships to all military, active duty, and veterans and law enforcement and first responders. So check that all out at imtcva.org, imtcva.org. And if you're military, hit /military, and it'll tell you all about that. And I really don't want you to get robbed in your family's higher education quest. So be sure to watch the higher education webinar at screwthecommute.com. Just click on webinars, and I'll have more details about that later. All right, let's get to the main event. Shane Willis is an Army veteran and entrepreneur who has had it all, lost it all, and had to fight to get it back. And after losing everything with the mortgage crash, Shane had to learn different rules of the financial game. And now he teaches others those rules he wished he would have known then. Shane, are you ready to screw the commute?
Thanks, Tom.
Are you ready
I'm glad you finished that sentence.
Are you ready to screw in the closet or come out of the closet? I know.
No.
his sound booth is perfect in a big walk-in closet.
Yeah, I had a quick surgery yesterday, so still slightly drugged up. And
good. That's you'll probably do better than most guests around here.
Right.
So tell everybody what you're doing now, and then we'll take you back and see how you came up through the ranks.
Sure. What I'm actually doing right now is called Purpose-Driven Profits. I'm actually teaching a lot of different people. I just started teaching this beyond my scope. I've been kind of testing to make sure it's, here scope. And then I picked a couple test markets, and everybody seems to be picking up on it quite a bit. And it's how if we have real estate knowledge, and a lot of my focus is towards realtors, entrepreneurs, and mortgage lenders. And if you have real estate knowledge, in my mind, you have an obligation to fight a crisis that we see coming, but everybody is just ignoring it. And that's the affordable housing crisis.
Right.
If you look from 1983 to 2019, there's not one year where there's a drop in rent prices. Not one.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, the rent continues to rise. But there was a survey done actually in 2017. They said 72% of renters would prefer to buy. They just don't know how. And I know we're fixing to talk about a little bit about my history so you understand my mindset. And that's where I actually got this mission statement. So I figured out how to help folks who can't afford, quite can't afford it, but they can't afford the rent. So in actuality, they can. The problem is the lending institutions have just that pendulum after the crash swung too far the other way, too far conservative. And so
Right.
now we're having an affordability crisis
Right.
on top of prices continue to rise. So if rent's continuing to rise, price values are continuing to rise, but our income's not rising at the same level, that crisis is just going to get bigger and bigger. So I'm figuring out a way to help investors who want to invest in something like this make a profit, as well as solve a problem that I see is going to continue to grow rapidly unless something like the private market steps in and fixes it.
And they, we hear a lot about that on the news in California and stuff, where, contributing to the homeless crisis and all that stuff, right?
It is. It is. But you can, you know, I'm in Florida and you can see someone renting for $1,200 a month. They can afford $150,000 to $170,000 house. We just don't know how to get it to them. And there's a
Hmm.
couple of barriers to entry, if you will. If we were to talk business, because I know this is an entrepreneurial podcast. There's a couple of barriers of entry to figure out how to get them to that point. So
And
it's one or two steps. But boy, I feel like our program is actually solving that problem. I'm helping someone get in, lock in that purchase price so they're not wasting 5 more years renting with continually going up. Instead, they're actually starting to get the ownership. And like I said, 72% of the people surveyed said they want to own.
exactly. And I think home ownership in the millennial group is like the lowest ever, that kind of thing.
It
Um,
is. And there are some purposes for renting. I
mhm.
own rentals and then I also own notes on some other properties that I have owner finance, which is what I'm talking about. But there's reasons where definitely some things you got to do to make sure you're covered, make sure your other investors are covered. But I own some rentals because I'm right off the back gate of Pensacola Naval Air Station.
Right. Of course.
Well, if you
Yeah.
know anything about Pensacola Naval Air Station, it's the cradle of Navy aviation. Every Navy pilot ever has spent at least 12 months here, but more likely 18 months here,
Hmm.
to include President Bush. I mean, any of if they've ever flown a plane for the Navy, they've been here. If you're only going to be here for 12 months, maybe that's not the best person to buy. But if you're going to be here for 3, 4, 5, 6 years, yeah, there's no sense in paying the increase. I have one rental that's literally changed hands 3 times this year. I started out at 1,100 a month in the middle of the summer, went to 1175 a month. They actually got random orders out of nowhere. So just re-rented it again because that was July 1175. I rented it in July. Just re-rented it again in September, and I was at 1235
Well,
all
yeah.
in one year.
Yeah.
So that's
And,
just
and,
a
and the thing is a lot of people, if you weren't being kind to the military, would screw them on deposits and all kinds of
oh yeah,
things,
yeah.
so
But I'm a veteran
of
myself, and
course. Yeah.
so I put the military clause in there. You got to give me 30 days. This one was a random order. It was a special forces guy. And I talked to his command, and he goes, he did not know until 15 days out. And I'm just, yeah,
Yeah.
I
What are you
could
going to
hold
do?
it for the
Yeah.
15 days. I'm just not going to do it.
Right. So, is your program educate people, or what? How does
It
it help
does.
them get
Yeah, the
into the
program's
housing?
educating people on how to acquire property. Basically, get an investor. A lot of what I do is I've got a lot of investors that are using their 401k money. They'll
Hmm.
send money to me, and we'll just use some easy math. So I'll go buy a property for $75,000, right? And I have a 401k investor that'll give me 77 for that.
Hmm.
Now the property's true value is probably somewhere around 100, maybe 110. So it's undervalued where I'm purchasing it,
Right.
and I teach people how to find those properties. So I get 77 because it's going to cost me about $2,000 in closings, and I don't want to have much money myself in it. My
Right.
first couple of ones I did, I had all the money in it. I didn't have an investor that did this. So I get that type investor come in, we find it, we pick it up for 77. Then I have a buyer who I know wants to buy, but then we look at their credit and their credit's 530.
Hmm.
Well, why is their credit 530? Well, A, they don't have some trade lines. Or B, and you'll hear my story, they had just a hard time. And I think my story is key to this entire program because I got beat up. And I literally walked into a bank one time asking to borrow money, and the person physically laughed at me. It took
Yeah.
everything I had not to hit her, but I don't hit women. So,
All right. Well, let's go ahead and
um,
take you back then. What?
okay.
How did you come up through the ranks? What
Well,
happened?
yeah, we'll definitely go way, way back.
Yeah.
Um, as a kid, I was always an entrepreneur. That was just me, right? I was that kid from fifth to eighth grade that all summer I was the kid cutting the grass.
Hmm.
Everybody else was playing football or going skating or going to the beach because we live at the beach. I was the one cutting the grass, making money. Of course, I spent half of it, but I kept about another half, right? And right before school started, my parents would always go to Sam's Club, get like a week's worth of stuff. So I bought this like 1,000 pack of those atomic fireballs. I
Yeah.
have to every time I tell this story, I have to clarify. I'm like, for my non-alcoholic friends,
Right.
that's not the liquor.
Right.
It's the little cinnamon, the cinnamon jawbreakers.
Right.
I'd buy like 1,000 pack, and I figured out I was getting them at about 10 cents a piece because I was buying them what
Mhm.
I thought wholesale at Sam's. Well, I'd put 15 of them in my pocket. I'd go to class. I'd pop one. That was my product marketing.
Right.
Hey, who's got a fire? Because you smelt them, right?
Right.
And I would sell the other 14 at a quarter a piece. And then I would take some of my profits that day, walk down to the Tom Thumb, and I bought 10 of the little blow pop suckers, right?
Mhm.
I bought those at a quarter a piece. And then the next day, I had 15 fireballs and 10 blow pops, and I'm selling the blow pops for $1 a piece. I made a little money,
Yeah.
right? Success just kind of came easy. Of course, that was 5th to 8th grade. In 9th grade, I had to stop that because I had to be a cool high school kid. And that just was not going to make me the cool high school kid. So I had gotten into sports. Even in 5th to 8th grade, I played baseball and football. But in 9th grade, I played baseball, football, and I picked up a basketball. And I loved the sport. And Tom, I sucked. I was horrible. I literally would throw the ball up like a shoot, but I felt like I was doing it like a baseball.
Mhm.
It would hit the backboard, not hit the rim, nowhere near the net, just bounce back. They called me brick. I was horrible. But I worked my butt off on that for 4 years. And at the end of my senior year, our team had gotten really good. We actually won nationals, and I was on the county all-star team. So
Oh,
success kind
wow.
of came easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Graduate high school, get into the military. I actually ranked up a little faster than I should have. I kept picking up rank about 6 months or a year early. But at this, while I was working part-time, learning financial services, that's where I got in the financial services world. I learned insurance. I learned investments. I learned mortgages. I learned real estate. So we're talking early 90s now. And then my biggest success in 96 was convincing my wife to marry me. Yeah, that still is definitely to this day my biggest success.
Yep.
I married way up. But success came easy. Finished my military time and went to college. College was tough. When I say I know hard work, I grew up in what we call a income challenged. If you could see my air
Mhm.
quotes thrown up, an income challenge household. So I knew hard work. College, there was one semester I took 7 classes on a lab all in one semester
Wow.
while working 32 hours a week. Sleep was an option. I needed to get done. Um, and the lab was a biology lab, and I couldn't get it. I was taking the biology class, which I did not care about because to this day, I have no idea why I need to know the difference between a male and female pine cone. I just don't know. But
It's
in
hard
the
enough to
lab,
tell the difference between male and female people now.
right. So, but in the actual class, you would have like the picture of the starfish and they'd like diagram it. Well, it could click in my mind. I could do that. But then when I would get in the lab, same starfish is just cut open. And they're like, what is that? I'm like, I don't know. Squishy. I really don't know. So about halfway through, I went to the professor and I went, how many times do you teach this lab a week? He said 3. I said, can I come to the other 2? He goes, well, yeah. I said, okay. So now I got 7 classes in this lab 3 times while
Oh,
working 32
wow.
hours a week.
Wow.
Um, and getting my GI Bill. Thank goodness for the GI Bill, or else we
Mhm.
wouldn't have been able to eat. I know that I probably should have failed that lab. I think that professor was just sick of seeing me, so he gave me the C minus minus that would pass me. But success kind of came easy after college. Got into mortgages. I went full time into mortgages. Learned everything about mortgages in 4 months, and so after working the company for 3 months, I was the top salesperson there. And after 4 months, I obviously learned everything I needed to learn. I didn't need to learn anything else from them, so I went out and opened my own because I didn't need them anymore. And it was kind of weird. About 3 months later, after that, the owner and founder of the company I used to work for passed away suddenly, just dropped.
Wow. Wow.
And at the funeral, the entire staff, all 22 loan officers, support staff, come up to me going, "Can I come work for you?" Like, wow, guys, this is not the place or the time.
Yeah, really. That's like Andrew Dice Clay, who used to go up to the widow and say, "Hey, you here with anybody?"
I forgot that.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I was like, it's not the place or time, but I'll call you. And so I let about a week go. I talked to the widow because I'd become friends with her and her son. And they said, that's fine. We worked out a lease option on the building. And literally, we went from a Friday saying the name of one mortgage company to a Monday saying the name of another.
Wow.
Success came easy. About 6 months later, found another company down in the I-4 corridor from St. Petersburg all the way to Orlando, multiple offices. that wanted to be acquired. So I acquired them, merged them in together. So I went from, graduating college within a year and a half, owning a company that had about 120 plus loan officers. I can't even count how many processors we have, 15 underwriters. We were doing good. We were making money. And I just felt like success wise, I had the golden finger. It's just because I hadn't been punched in the mouth yet. Everything I touched turned to gold. It just did. If you look at that whole lifespan, everything I touched turned to gold. I even married a gorgeous redhead. Everything I touched turned to gold. And then, of course, 2007 happened.
Yeah.
And I can remember to this day, the day that I had come home. I think it's just because of one of those mental snapshots. It's like, you can remember where you are when 9/11 happened.
Right.
I can remember I just got out of the shower. I walked over to the window from our bedroom and I looked out front. I was watching my wife and kid front. I remember details, Tom, like the speed of the ceiling fan was on 4. So that was always an argument between me and my wife because I'm a polar bear and she doesn't have any blood pressure. Excuse me 1 second. And so I remembered it was on 4 instead of 10 where I liked it. And I just kind of mentally took the snapshot of everything because I knew things they didn't know. I knew when Bank of America had called me that day, when Bear Stearns had called me that day and said all my funding was cut off, I knew the world was about to change.
Right.
And it did drastically. So the next couple of years, about the next year, I did what a lot of people did, and that's turned to alcohol because I didn't want to feel any of the stuff that I was feeling. We lost everything, lost the cars, lost all the investment properties. I was selling stuff, for $500. I just paid $10,000 for a year before, so we could eat. And and when I got the foreclosure notice, not that I didn't know it was coming, it was just hard. Mentally, I'd always been the provider for the family. They'd always kind of looked forward to me. And when I got that letter saying we were getting kicked out, I fought it a little bit and bought us about 60 days. And I remember that Thanksgiving, I made the kids, dress up in our best, almost like a, Grey Garden style, dress up in our best and had a nice meal because I knew the day after Thanksgiving I was going to have to start packing our stuff. And we made it back home to Pensacola, and I had to find work. Obviously, like I said, I can only sell so much stuff so cheap for us to continue to eat. I had to find work. I went to work for 9 months running a car finance company, and figured out that I can't work for someone else. Those days are past me ever since I took my uniform off.
I know that feeling.
But one of the things that did happen is that car finance company got sucked into the same thing that everything else was happening, and so they went under. And even though I'd only been with them 9 months, they offered me a very generous 4-month salary severance package. So I took the summer off because that actually happened in early June. I took the summer off. My son was 10, and I'm like, I just got to figure out what I want to do. I've been paid for 4 months, so I'm okay. So we played World of Warcraft and surfed all summer. That's all we did.
Well,
I knew I was not going to get that summer back. But what was really sad was come fall, because I was obviously, they give me the severance package, but I was drawing the unemployment. Come fall, I went to work at the local college as an adjunct professor. I took on a 5-course load as an adjunct professor. And I think what made me kind of sad about our society is that my payment from the junior college as an adjunct professor was less than what I was making in unemployment.
Yeah.
And so I get it. During that time, though, one of the things I kept wanting to do was re-own a home. And of course, when I went to borrow money, I just got laughed at. Are you kidding me? My credit score dropped from 780 to 460.
Wow.
And I know you start at 350, and I'm fairly certain you get 100 points for spelling your name right. So it went just way down. And so obviously I'm having to pay higher rents. We went to go to deposit. State of Florida says the maximum deposit you can take is 2 months. So we're having max deposits, and I'm just scrambling. And I did the whole semester thing at the college and found out that that's just not going to work for me because, you and I haven't met, but I'm not a small chicken. There's not a lot of meals I miss. So I wound up I'd kept my real estate license the entire time. And about it was early 2010, late 2009. I started realizing I was actually friends. I don't know if you know who Alex Sharfin is,
Mm-mm.
but he actually taught everybody how to do short sales as an agent. And I'm like, well, my banking background helps me out with that. So for about 5 years, I was helping people avoid the foreclosure, the pain that I went through by doing a short sale. But even with that, you still wind up having a little bit of a hit on your credit. It's a lot less hit on your credit than a foreclosure. And the big thing that you avoid is a deficiency judgment. So a bank, let's say you owed a bank 300,000 and it's sold at foreclosure for 150. The bank has the right to come after you for that other 150.
Right, right.
It's called a deficiency judgment. Most of the short sales, though, you can negotiate that they waive their right to a deficiency judgment. That's the big reason I could not buy another home, is because every time I went to go do a mortgage price, they're like, you have a potential deficiency judgment, because that thing doesn't drop off for like 4 years
I see.
in our state. So I couldn't even have a potential. So that was kind of my mindset. And after I'd done about a year worth of short sales, I was like, I wonder how many people are in the same world like me. It's not that I'm not working. It's not that I'm not trying to make money. It's not that I'm trying to live off the system. That's not the clientele that I'm looking for. I'm looking for the person who's willing to hustle and let me give them a shot, instead of letting them see over and over and over again a price increase on rent. Because I had to rent one place, and I rented one place for 6 years. And every year when it come time for renewal, price increase,
Yep.
price increase. And I get it as a landlord. I own rentals. I get it. But boy, it's just, 72% of the people want to be able to buy their own. So now what I did is I went out and I talked to some people. I had a property that we had purchased with one of our flips, because I flipped a couple of properties during those years, and I took the profit and rolled it into another one. So I owed very little, flipped another one, and actually paid it off. So now I owe nothing on this one little small house. And I mean, it's a small house. I think I paid like $35,000 for the place, but it was worth about 55 when I bought it. Um, and so I went over and I said, okay, I'm going to sign this owner financing. But here's a big key factor that you want to figure out is you do not want, when I go to sell it to the buyer, I'm not looking at appraised value. I'm not looking at broker price of value. I'm looking at owner finance value. So it's a different value that a lot of people don't teach. And what the owner finance value is, okay, you, Mr. Buyer, have been paying rent for $1,200 a month every month for 3 years and can prove it. 2 years, whatever. You can prove it. First of all, on the credit side, I'm going to show you how to get that in the credit report. But if I can prove that, then I know they can afford that.
Right.
So that changes our game. So let's take what taxes and insurance are going to be less, figure out what principal and interest payments would be at 10%. And then you guys can come in and own a property for about 4 or 5 years. But I'm even going to take it a step further. Hey, do you know what I'm talking about as far as companies called JD Buy Rider or Drive Time?
No.
Okay. They're popular. I've seen them out in Phoenix a lot. I thought they were all over Texas, but these companies are they have a credit repair program, but they sell you a car. So they sell you a $7,000 car for $10,000. It's a buy here, pay here, but they are reporting to report every month.
Right.
I kind of used that model. I'm like, listen, we understand this house is not worth 70,000 broker price opinion or appraised value, but your rent value, it is. And so over the next 5 years, I'm going to take you through this entire program. And I built an entire credit revolution program that I sell independently, but I make anybody that goes through this program, they have to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
It talks about not just your credit repair, but how to add rent, how to add utilities, how to settle the debts for less, but get them paid in full. I mean, it's just financial. It's almost like finance 101. It's like stuff we should teach in high school. And nobody knows this stuff. So now you have to go through that program. You buy from me, you hold it about 4 or 5 years, and then you should graduate from me. Meaning you should go to the bank at that point, be able to refinance your note. The property's appraised, although you've owned it for 5 years now, too. So you've
Right.
got any appreciation that's happened, and now you've graduated my program and you don't need me anymore.
Nice. What's the name of this program?
The purpose-driven profits.
So how do people find out about it?
thepurposedrivenprofit.com.
The
And actually,
purpose.
I've got a whole set for you, just you guys.
Oh,
Um,
beautiful. And
Yeah.
but this is not just for veterans, right? To anybody.
No, it is
Right?
not. It
Yeah,
is not. I am a veteran. I'll help a veteran out any way I can.
of course.
But no, for this podcast, for the next couple of weeks, I put up the purpose driven profit.com/, screw dash the dash commute.
All right. We made it big time. All right. So
You made it. You've made it big time.
yeah. So we got to take a brief sponsor break. And then when we come back, we're going to come back and ask Shane, what's a typical day look like for him and how he stays motivated. So folks, I'm on my knees, down on my knees, begging you to check out a particular webinar or pass it on to someone who could use it. I mean, it has to do with higher education. If you're considering getting retrained because you hate what you're doing or you want a better life for yourself or your family, or even if you have kids, nephews, nieces, or neighbors who are wondering if they should burn up hundreds of thousands of dollars and then end up broke with mountains of debt and no marketable skills, all right, and competing for jobs at Starbucks. Well, you just got to watch this webinar. I mean, you got nothing to lose and everything to gain from taking a little time out. Visit screwthecommute.com, click on webinars, and watch the one on higher education. And it's not just me hawking my school. It's a lot of high-level education people telling you what's screwed up about the system and how it's really hurting our youth. So check it out at screwthecommute.com and then click on webinars. All right, let's get back to the main event. Shane Willis is here, suffered a devastating loss in the real estate crash in the 07 area, 08 area, but climbed back and realized how other people could be in the same situation and devised a program that's win-win for everybody. So make sure you check out his the show notes and go over and check out his program. Now, Shane's, what's a typical day look like for you right now?
Teaching a lot.
Yeah.
There are two aspects that everybody, especially when they come to buy one of these programs, there's two aspects really stopping people from going to a traditional bank to be able to become that American dream of home ownership. One is credit, which we've kind of touched on already. I've got a whole course that I build into anyone buying this course, the whole purpose-driven profit. They just get the credit repair course for free. Right. But the other one's income. And that's really where I kind of like your world, because I'm teaching people, look, if I understand you're making this much money from 8 to 5, I get it. I understand that you're trying to figure out ways to increase income. I get it. My 22-year-old's looking at me going, in this town, at 22 years old, he's been on his job 100 days. They're paying him $35,000 a year. He's a high school graduate. He didn't go to college, didn't want to. He's like, that's not my gig. Okay, I'm not going to force you to go. So he's making decent money in this town because the average household income here is 50. So he's making 35 on his own. Mm-hmm. But then he's learning that you got to go a little post that. What can you do? What online stuff can you do? He's figured out Twitch, which I thought he was just gaming for a while, but he's actually making some money on that stuff. He's figured out how to go yard sale on the weekend and flip stuff. And he's figured out, like I said, some of the same stuff you teach, that people are writing stuff online. Where can you work when?
Yeah.
That's how you add the extra income. So those two barriers have to be overcome in order to get to this program. Because a lot of people still think that you have to have a ton of money down payment. You don't. In my program, the minimum is 10%. That's to buy from me. Now, if you can actually get FHA finance, then it's like 3.5%. So you don't have to have a lot, but you got to earn some. And it's all knowledge. So a typical day for me is getting up. The morning routine is critical for me just because of the stress levels. If I don't get that run or that workout in, I'll go nuts. My wife will look at me and go, "You didn't run today." She just knows. So I got to get the run in, which is tough for me today because of the surgery yesterday. I couldn't do anything. I'm like, I am not one to lay in a bed. I hate it.
I get it.
But I know I got to recover some. So get the morning routine done, meeting with the VAs, who's doing the video auditing, working on the courses, developing the courses, and then a lot of calls. I do a lot of podcasts. I do a lot of trainings online. I meet with some people locally. A lot of my investors are local 401k because I've done a couple of seminars. So they do self-directed 401ks, and they're making 8% interest by investing in me, and they know they've got a really good position. on a piece of real estate because it's not 100% financing.
Got
That's
it.
what crashed us. I owned a mortgage
Yeah.
company. We're talking about 110%
Yeah,
loan to value.
anybody, people, their support horse was getting loans, So
Yeah, yeah. It
anybody.
was, did you ever see that movie? Tom, you ever see the movie The Big Short?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was bad because a lot of those names, a lot of those bank names, I'm like, oh, I borrowed money from them. I know I wasn't the problem because I didn't do those pick-a-pay loans.
Right, right.
But yeah, so lots of training.
So how do you stay motivated?
Because I remember where I
You
was.
remember where you were, yep. Never
and
want
I
to be
know
back there, right?
Exactly. I know that feeling. I remember when that girl laughed at me in the bank, physically laughed at me, she did the best thing she possibly could for me. Because if I ever start to get slow, all I do is picture her laughing at me again. I get angry again, want to go punch something again and get back to it.
That's great. So what the people that listen to the show, we call them Screwballs. so what parting thoughts do you have for them business wise, and or if they are in a bad situation, what should they do?
Well, find a purpose. That's why I called the whole program the Purpose Driven Profits, because it's funny how we can sit here as entrepreneurs and go, I'm going to make the money. And it's all about the money. It's not. I've had it. I've lost it. You've got it. It's not about the money. There comes a point when you're like, it's not there. So we find a purpose behind that. You find some type of purpose behind it. So what's your why? Maybe your why really is, I need to make $2,500 a month. Okay, let's get that done. Then you need to reevaluate. And I think that evaluation should happen every 90 days. I think you should be a different person December 31st than you are when you're listening to this right now.
Yeah, so I was just talking to a military spouse, her and her husband, on every Saturday to reevaluate their family goals and their business goals. So that's even like once a week. That's really.
It's funny you say that because we talk about, my wife and I have a 90-day goal every quarter, but every Sunday afternoon, we call it the general's tent.
Oh, well, there you go.
And we literally just come into the general's tent. So it's the king and the queen coming into the general's tent to figure out what adjustments, what worked last week, what didn't work last week, and what miniature adjustments do we need to make in order to hit the 90-day goal. But then at the end of that 90 days, we got to have another 90. And they got to be stretched.
See, that's great because I remember I was a charter pilot, and my first instructor said, hey, if you want to be a pro, you make small, immediate corrections. You don't wait till it's too late and then you zigzag all over the place trying to get where you're going, So that's what you're doing on your Sundays, and then reevaluating every quarter, right?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So, but, instead of, hey, we're going to make New Year's resolutions on January 1st, and then
they're done by the 15th. All right. Well, so
and
great.
Valentine's candy shows up.
so great meeting you, man. And tell them the name of the website again.
It's thepurposedrivenprofit.com/screw-the-commute.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much. And thanks for your service to our country. And thanks for making that comeback and inspiring other people and making actually a plan. You're more than inspiring them. You're giving them a plan to actually make their comeback. So very, very, very powerful, because a lot of the debt reduction places out there are just rip-offs, and people are in more debt when they get done with them. So
Agreed.
Thanks so much, man.
Thanks. I really appreciate you having me. And
all
all
right.
the Screwballs out there. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, everybody. We'll catch you all on the next episode. See you later.